Good morning. I'm going to call to order the July 1st, 2025 regular Hancock County Commissioners meeting. Is there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, I'm gonna move to adjust, I'm gonna move the agenda as presented with the adjustment of, I think it's 13. Approving additional funds in support of the Hancock County site. 12.
I'll second the motion.
12. Okay, thanks.
Second the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Commissioner Developers on the agenda this morning. I don't know if he made- John, good morning. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning. I
Okay.
vote no. I vote no.
On the agenda adjustment,
Yes.
okay, two in favor, one against.
Yeah. My feeling is we're adjusting the agenda, but the public doesn't know that.
Point taken.
Okay.
Motion carries 2-1. Is there any public comment this morning? Hearing none.
Didn't see him, so I don't know.
It is.
This-
There is a public
this-
comment.
this-
Here's a public comment.
Oh, there is comments. Who am I recognizing? Sarah.
I don't know.
Looks like
Um,
Joyce.
Yeah, it's actually George Schelling. Is this a public comment on anything, or I didn't miss excuse me, I didn't hear what the motion was. And I don't know if the comment is on that motion or just generally.
You can comment for the next 3 minutes on any subject you'd like.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I was in person at your meeting last time. I was concerned about the actions of ICE and Border Control and the involvement of our county officers as well as our local and state officers in enforcement actions by ICE and the Border Patrol. We talked about having a potential forum. That's still something we're working on. But I wanted just to provide sort of an update from my point of view. We continue to see ICE and Border Patrol acting to detain people without any markings on them, refusing to identify themselves, waving guns, and they're masked. And these are all things our police and our county officers would not do. And it's unfortunately, this behavior has led to individuals impersonating officers. And as we know, they have actually, in the process of that, have killed people. They've kidnapped people. And it's a concern of mine, particularly because citizens don't know who is who. And with guns being waved and people being concerned about their own lives and well-being, there's a tremendous potential for violence here. Because someone reasonably thinking they're being attacked by someone who is not an officer may well be legitimately forced to resort to violence. I'm concerned about our police being put in that situation. And I'm just hoping that we're going to be able to steer clear of that, because it not only endangers our police, but endangers the status of police in our municipalities, their trust and the extent to which we feel confident that we can rely upon them for our safety. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else that wishes to speak? No one else, Sarah?
Charles Stevens?
Charles Stevens?
Yes, yes. I'd like to, I'd like to speak in support of what George Schelling just said. My mother was a first generation American. Her parents came from another country. And I can't imagine what she or her brothers would have done if a masked person would have come up to them and tried to arrest them with no identification, no proof that they were officially sanctioned to be police officers or federal agents or anything like that, shoved them in a van. Knowing my Czechoslovakian uncles, there would have been violence. They wouldn't have stood for that. They would have obeyed the law. They would have agreed with police officers stopping them, but to be put into a van by masked, unidentified thugs. I passed a border control car near Bucksport yesterday driving home, and I was tempted to stop and see if they were masked, if they were identified, to ask them what they were doing. This just does not, it seems un-American to me. And I'm frightened that my county here in Hancock County, Maine, might be okay with that kind of behavior. It's just so un-American. That's my comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this morning that wishes to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to the agenda.
Gonna move to approve the minutes of the June 17th, 2025 Commissioner Special Meeting as presented.
Yeah, can you bring Sam back up so we can see him?
Not till he speaks. Not till he speaks.
Sam, motion to approve the minutes.
I second that.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye. Now I'd like to welcome this morning President of the Maine County Commissioners Association, Andre Cushing. Good morning, Commissioner.
Commissioners, good morning. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I have some information that I left with Mr. Kirker. One of the items is our.
Excuse me. just-
That's all right.
He just gave. But I think,
I-
I think you might email a copy of that.
Okay.
I did send by email a copy of my presidential goals. I did also bring for you gentlemen a copy of the information. Yes. There you go. Copy of the information regarding our upcoming meeting for next month. As you may know, we do 4 of our meetings in person every year. That includes the convention and the annual meeting. And next week, July's meeting will be in Farmington. They have a new emergency operations center that they just built. They're going to host us there. We'll be doing some subcommittee meetings and then talking with colleagues from the sheriffs, the administrators, and Maine Municipal about the last legislative session and priorities that we all feel we could work on for the coming session. We've got a luncheon they're hosting with the gentleman from Lifelight of Maine, talking about some of the collaborative efforts they've worked on in EMS. And then we'll have our board meeting and risk pool in the afternoon. And then they've arranged for a little reception area for us if anyone has time and wants to stay and get to know some of their colleagues. As you gentlemen may know, I'm a commissioner of Montauk County. I'm also a recovering legislator. I did almost 10 years in the Maine House and Senate.
You do recover?
It takes a while. It takes a while.
You're looking.
Thank you. You spend much time in Augusta and you need continued therapy. Though.
It's been years, but I'm still thinking that.
I understand. So in the coming year, one of the goals I have is to improve our relations with our partner organizations like the sheriffs, the administrators, some of the other important elected and appointed positions that we all have in our counties. I feel that after COVID, we kind of missed a step there. There's been some big changes. Over a third of the commissioners changed in the last election cycle. So there's a lot of people interested in getting information about what a county commissioner is supposed to do. And so we're providing some training opportunities after the board meetings. We are doing virtual presentations. We've had one on cybersecurity. We've had one on the risk pool. We're starting to look at other topics that would be important. So we can kind of get people understanding what the roles are that we all serve in and how to most effectively do our jobs.
And I took a one-day course in Augusta when I first came on the commission.
Mhm.
Did they have that again?
We do. That's usually the annual meeting, which takes place in January. This coming year, we'll move that a little later in the month because we had a couple of commissioners who were due who hadn't even been sworn in. You may know a gentleman named Solomon Millett. Solomon is now a commissioner over in Oxford County, and he's serving as our secretary treasurer. He seems to have a little experience in finance that we're putting to work. He has also been very helpful, as has Tim Curtis, the president for the Maine administrators, and several others who've stepped up to help us put together information to provide to the state. We made some good steps in educating the Criminal Justice Committee this year that there are some serious challenges that our jail systems are facing with the state mandating more requirements and providing less resources. We did in this budget receive the additional $4 million on top of the 20.4 that historically we've gotten from the state, which funds about $130 million worth of operational expenses for the jail. So the $4 million that the governor had previously put in to do medically assisted treatment, the legislature found $4 million for one budget cycle. So we're going to have to go back to the table and find a way to convince them that not only do we need that continued funding, but they should seriously look at what our funding needs are to deal with folks. We have used the analogy, which seems to make sense to people, that a jail is like an emergency room. You don't know who's coming, how many are coming, how long they're going to stay, or what condition they're in when they get here. And when we hand them off to the state, if they are found to be in need of further incarceration, it's kind of like a nursing home system. They know how long they're going to be there. We've taken care of stabilizing them to a degree. So we need to have a better relationship there. I know you've had a little experience in juggling those balls, so you can appreciate it's not gotten any better. The time that things have moved on. So that first goal is to improve those communications. We're doing that through regular sharing of information on our legislative policy. We invite some of these partner organizations' leadership to the calls and to the board meeting, and that's been working well. We are at convention going to do a number of training sessions and informational sessions. If any of you gentlemen are golfers, we will have a golf tournament on Wednesday prior to that. Sheriff Brackett currently is a fairly good golfer down in Lincoln County, and he's going to put a couple of teams together, I think, to be there on behalf of the sheriff. So we'll need some good commissioners to step up and help us. The other part that I feel is important is we need to find ways to collaborate with our municipal partners. Home rule is a wonderful form of government to stay close to the elected people that we serve, but it's getting tougher and tougher to find folks to fill many of those jobs. So counties have started some of those activities. In Cumberland County, they've been doing assessing for a while now. They have a team of assessors they contract with the towns. York County hired a fire administrator to help their localities that need some more attention to the administrative side and organizational side. Lincoln County has one person that does all the animal control for their towns and their community. And here in Penobscot, you may have read about the the Howland area, forming a fire EMS district. That's the first one of those that's been established in the state. Seems to be doing well. Chief McNally up there was the driving force to get that started. And they now have a governing board of the 8 towns and UT in that region. And they came to us when they reached a certain point where there seemed to be a willingness to work together. They just didn't know who was going to do the legal work and who was going to pay for it. So the county agreed to ask Bredman Winchell to help with that. They did so. We covered the cost, which was, I think, a good investment because it helped them develop a pretty good set of bylaws and guiding principles, establish the board. We also contracted with a gentleman to help as a moderator to bring that to conclusion. Paul Froman from down in York County, he's a teacher in the fire sciences down there. He has been working with them, and he also has started working with several other groups in Penobscot County that, as a result of hearing about this, wanted to find ways that they might work together. So there's a group in the Levant, Carmel area, there's another one up in Corinth, and there's a third one up in Millinocket. So we're looking to be partners, and we'll be working on some things during our meetings to make people aware of what's going on and how they might find ways to do the same thing if they so desire in their regions. So those are a couple of the things that I'm working on, and then just providing more training opportunities for the new folks who are coming on. We do have 15 members now who are former legislators who are commissioners. And I've been working with some of them to help us in Augusta when it comes time to work on legislative matters. So that's been working well. I've given you some information on the convention and some of the topics that we have. We'd be delighted to have folks from your county join us at the convention in September. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you folks might have, and I really appreciate the time to come down and visit.
Andy, you going to Farmington at Randall?
I am not planning to.
We're right in the middle of Commissioner of developing our own EOC building. Planning and getting ready to break ground here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And so we're very interested in EOCs and sure how they developed it. We might make that trip.
Okay, well, there's a flyer. In fact, in the event that you can arrange to have yourself or one of your team come over, we'd be happy to see you there too. We'll provide a pretty good lunch.
Thank you for coming down. We
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
I appreciate it. Good to see you.
And you.
John, nice to meet you in person. Sam, thank you. Sam has been great about representing you on many of the LPC calls, and we appreciate that. I kind of reached out to various folks, and he stepped up to take that.
Well, thank you.
Yep, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Have a good day.
So we'll move on now to EMA.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you.
We have your report, anything to add?
I do not, unless you have any questions, Commissioners.
I'm going to move to accept and file the EMA monthly report as presented.
I second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Commissioner, do you mind if I suggest we take things out of order and address item E?
Yep, whatever you
Because we have Mr. Morley with the U.S. Navy online.
Okay. So we're gonna go to E.
Yes, please.
Explain to us what that is.
Mr. Morley, would you like to offer a explanation to the Commissioners?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me this morning and consideration of this request. We are proposing, the Navy is proposing to move forward with a change in the legislative jurisdiction at property naval support activity Prospect Harbor in Goldsboro, Maine. This facility, this site, is scheduled to be transferred from the Navy to the U.S. Air Force. They will hold that property on behalf of the United States Space Force, who has already taken over operations there at Prospect Harbor. The site itself is almost entirely federal jurisdiction, meaning only federal authorities can take judicial and law enforcement actions there. However, Space Force plans to operate the site with contracted security officers at the site. And in order to have that operation work successfully, the jurisdiction needs to be changed to concurrent at the site. So this is a process that will culminate with a request from the Navy to the Maine legislature to move forward with changing the jurisdiction. But as part of our Navy process, we are requesting concurrence from the interested, affected municipalities that would provide a law enforcement support to that installation, that site, if the jurisdiction were to go to concurrent. So we have concurrence from the town of Goldsboro, and we would like to request your concurrence with this proposed change as well. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Um, um, why are we contracting out the operations where the Navy took care of everything themselves on military pay and all of that? I don't know. These contractors have CEOs, bonus pays. I don't know. I mean, I know the military does, pretty good work for, below salary wages, but why do we have to rely on outside forces?
Well, I can't speak directly for the Air Force or Space Force, but from what I understand, this is their typical model that they use for gate security, for installation kind of security screening at the installation at the front gates. For a lot of these installations, they have a contracted security member who just checks IDs, does the force protection, and is able to contact local law enforcement. The Navy doesn't necessarily use that model very frequently, but I think the Air Force and Space Force as a different service branch, this is a model that they frequently use.
Okay.
Sam, I will tell you that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you're going to find that there's concurrent jurisdiction in Acadia Park. That concurrent jurisdiction has been for decades. Is that correct, Candy?
Approximately 20 plus years now.
Yeah, 20 plus years they've had concurrent. And it's just a collaboration between the federal and the local law enforcement, which is a good idea in any case. So I see no problem here. And if that contract, of course, provides revenue for the town, all the better.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move to approve. I'm gonna move approval of the legislative jurisdiction change from exclusive federal jurisdiction to concurrent jurisdiction at the Naval Support Activity Prospect Harbor, Maine.
And for the chairs. And for the chairs.
Oh, and for the chair to sign.
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Marley.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Have any introduction to make?
I do, item B. Yes, I'd like to introduce Ms. Faith Reese, our resident of Hall Quarry, in town of Mount Desert. You may recall, just a brief history, that last year it was requested that we essentially do Maine CDC a favor and that Hancock County host a summer intern through the Hanley Center for Leadership, Health Leadership and Education based in Yarmouth. We agreed to that. Regrettably, the the candidate who was selected could not find local housing during the summer. They had some that fell apart and then had to go by the wayside. So CDC approached us again this year, back in January, asked if we would do that. And we agreed, and you agreed. And the end consequence of that is Faith is here with us for 10 weeks. She's now 5 weeks into her 10-week sentence, and she's doing quite well. The Hanley Summer Undergraduate Health Leadership Internship was the formal name of it. It was new to us. We have summer staff here from time to time, but we don't really host internships, so there's a little bit of administrative hoops to jump through, and the folks in the treasurer's office and the county administrator's office were very kind and make all that come together. So, and HR, Josh, as well. It's been a fabulous experience so far. I don't want to speak for you.
Yes,
All right.
agreed.
All right. Just very briefly, in case you're interested in the work that Faith has been tasked with. And Commissioner DeBelle, I'll make sure you get a copy of this,
Thank you.
a copy of Faith's work plan. Faith, you want to tell them a little bit about what you're specifically tasked with and charged with,
I can, yeah.
please?
I am specifically working on mass care planning across all of the municipalities and towns. So specifically sheltering and community lifeline centers and what the plans are in terms of if there were to be a disaster.
Very good. Yeah, or what they may not be. And this was evident to us just a week ago. Remember, we had that extreme heat issue here in Hancock County and some towns open cooling centers and other towns weren't quite sure what to do. So that's the work that she's tasked with. I'll also share that Faith is in a 5-year dual degree program at Hudson University, in the public health administration degree, coupled with an MBA. She's going into her 4th year of that 5-year program. So it's been a wonderful experience. So
Well, Faith, hello again. We met previously, but I want to
Yes.
welcome you officially.
Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner.
Moving on.
Item C, I'd like to request from you, Commission, to trade in and execute the purchase of a new EMA vehicle. I had set aside funds to do this back in 2023 as part of our Homeland Security funding. And to be very candid, those funds are set to expire at the end of August, so approximately 59 days. I certainly don't want to lose that funding. And the challenge has arisen, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department is going to speak to this because I know you have the same item on the agenda. GM is not going to come out with the bid assist offers until probably late September, so not going to make it timing wise.
Action, gentlemen.
Move to approve the acquisition of a 2025 Tahoe SSV brokered by Island Tech Services Levant and sourced from Liberty Chevrolet, Wakefield, and Mass, with purchase through Plymouth County, Massachusetts GMC bid assistance contract.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And then last, same circumstances with a request the installation of the license plate readers at 6 locations here in Hancock County. Those items have actually been purchased already and reimbursed. They've been in storage in the sheriff's garage area for months. And that money is also expiring, and I'd like to go ahead to be able to award the electrician's contract to see those installed also before the deadline at the end of August.
What's the purpose of license plate readers?
So license plate readers are passive systems. There are 2 types. There's fixed and mobile. These are fixed ones that are going to be mounted on utility poles. They already exist in some locations. Port Harbor makes use of this currently. And they're passive systems that law enforcement would enter in a license plate number. And then if the camera picks that up, then it alerts authorities. So it's been used in some very high profile incidents throughout the state of Maine.
Well, these also assist us anytime that we put in a vehicle, maybe associated with a missing person, a suspect vehicle, a endangered person, when we enter that in up to the previous 5 days, those readers have seen that plate, we get a notification that's so that we know that maybe a missing person that was reported 2 days ago, that vehicle went through the toll booth in Kittery or Yarmouth or York, where it is down there. That's very helpful to us to help locate not necessarily criminals, but also endangered folks or missing folks, things like that. So those are very useful for us.
And they're all gonna get,
Thank you.
located in Hancock County.
6 different locations, yes, that all the agencies have identified. And also, this is going to be a system utilized by all the agencies in Hancock County.
Are you prepared to name your electrician today?
G&G Electric, holds COVID.
Do you want us to approve?
Yeah, I'm gonna move to approve the selection of G&G Electric, Olds Cove as the vendor to provide installation services of the LPR system in the 6 designated locations.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Anything else, Andy, this morning?
Not unless you have anything, Commissioner.
Oh, I think we're all set.
I'd like to share that the Farmington Facility Commissioner is, while it's titled an Emergency Operations Center, it's really a joint facility, much like existing in Waldo County before they moved out to Swanville.
I wasn't familiar with
It houses both the sheriff's office and EMA.
Oh, yes, I know. Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
so, and which is why I haven't visited, and they developed that strictly with
They
the.
moved the farming, they moved the,
No, I'm saying as in Belfast, when,
I know, but have they moved the sheriff's department's operation
No.
from jail?
no, they have not.
No. What's in the new EOC building?
The district attorney's office has moved in there.
What's in the new one?
Oh, just the EMA,
Just a,
just the EMA.
very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Unorganized territories. Is Miller's on this morning?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners.
We have your report, Miller. Anything to add?
A couple of things. I have made contact with Randy Perry about the snowplow contract for Township 22. And he did get the contract for Beddington and the Blois. And those towns granted him a 10% increase. So he's asking us for a 10% increase. So I said we would probably go for that. And I typed up a contract with a 10% increase and went to his house Saturday to get him to sign it, but he wasn't home. So I will try and catch up with him and get it signed so I can have it to you for your next meeting.
Miller, what was the contract again?
So snow plowing, snow removal, plowing and sanding, and for Route 193 and back road.
So we'll just wait to hear from you on that later, huh?
Yes. And then after I got your text message yesterday, I contacted Spencer Preble about the culverts on back road.
Just to bring the other two up to speed on that, I was contacted by a resident up on the back road who thinks we should install some additional culverts before we have that hot tub. So I sent that along to Millard. Go ahead, Millard. I just want to.
So I made an appointment to meet with him this evening when he gets done work and take a look at the 2 spots that he's talking about. One is to replace a culvert, replace an existing culvert, and the other one is to put a new culvert in a different location. So I'll meet with him and take a look. And if I feel we need the culverts, I'll definitely get it done before we pave. We don't want to be digging up new pavement.
No, that's been known to happen before.
Yep.
Not by us, thank you, thankfully.
All right, I'm gonna move to accept and file the AG's monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Millard. Airport is Leroy on this.
Good morning.
Morning. You have your monthly report, anything to add?
I just a quick update on the easements. I talked to Heath at Jacobs yesterday, and they're moving along very slowly. They're getting some counter offers that'll have to be worked through, but more to come on that. I'll get you next month on the update.
Any idea what you're doing on your new snowmobile? Yeah, snowmobile, your snow building? snow removal building?
It looks like, they probably want to get moving the end of this month.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
So the date they gave us was around the 28th, so sometime the end of this month, 1st of August.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move to accept and file the airport monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So the next one is I guess an open for discussion. As we know, the Jacobs contract is up the 5th of August. We've had the RFQ out, we've got everything in, we've had the interviews, we've got the grading, all the committee members made some gradings. And I guess I'm looking really for what direction how you'd like to proceed to the next step. I have not contacted any of the contractors, I guess we'll call them, engineering firms, yet. So how would you like to go about this?
Well, you're at a point now where you're prepared to select the engineering firm.
Correct. We're prepared to select a firm. All the scoring sheets came in with one firm standing out, so there really is no question there. It was the same firm that my scoring sheet also stood out, so I'm prepared to move forward with that one firm. If you'd like me to make that suggestion.
I feel like I don't know, I feel like we should be doing more diligence or something. But what else could we do?
Sure. We could have,
I'd like to suggest at a minimum, you sit down with that firm that you're thinking about with Michael.
Okay.
Go over it with Michael, and if you gentlemen think it's prudent, bring it back at the next meeting for us to take action. Is it okay, Michael?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I just feel like we're jumping into,
Yep.
but it's really a multi-million-dollar agenda here, so.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, let's just take that stance today, and we'll look for something perhaps at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
I can work with that. Thanks. That's all I got.
thank you. Probate's up next on it. Morning, Julia.
Good morning. I'm here to request approval to hire Eleanor Truesdale of Alfred as the new part-time probate clerk.
all right, I'm gonna move to approve and hire Eleanor Truesdale of Ellsworth as part-time probate clerk at step 6A, effective July 5th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're all set? Morning, Tim. We have your request. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I'm gonna move to approve the hire of Kathy Beatty of Charleston as part-time cook and step 6C. No benefits effective July 5th, 2025.
Just a second, Sam.
Yeah.
I've always felt it's prudent that our motion included the fact that they were on call as needed. Are you scheduling her to
No.
work?
It's on call as needed. She'll probably end up working every Sunday, but it's on call as needed.
I would like to see that in our part-time, when it's applicable,
As part-time on call as needed.
on call as needed.
Add that to the motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Resignation.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Gonna move to accept the resignation of Jessica Cole effective July 3rd, 2025.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna move to accept the resignation of Dorothy Fletcher effective June 29th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, I've got a request to move to approve removing Peter Armstrong from county payroll.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Anything else? No, that's it. Thank you. Sheriff's Department.
Morning, gentlemen. First, we have the approval and signature of the Denham School Resource Officer Agreement, the financial agreement is what I intended by that.
The agreement covers the full 12 months cost of this resource officer. Is that correct?
It covers, the full agreement covers 40 months. It's the remainder of this year until the end of 2020.
Oh, yeah, I see what I see. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is that the ongoing contract will take care of it for 12 months, even though they're only in the school year, right?
Yes,
Yep,
correct.
fine. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I'm gonna move to approve the Dedham School Resource Officer Agreement, law enforcement contract between Hancock County and the Dedham School Department. EOS number 47 as presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have a memorandum of agreement as well, correct?
That is something that I probably shouldn't have worded it that way on the agenda. I didn't include a spot for you gentlemen to sign. It's typically an agreement between the sheriff's office and the school,
And I've
but
always said that the contract is what we signed.
correct.
And the actual agreement for how they're gonna operate is between you and the contract.
Yes, correct.
So it's,
It was more or less to make you guys aware and to acknowledge
so
it.
really isn't any action for us to take on that.
There's
Okay?
If you'd like to move on, the
Excuse me,
next,
just a minute.
yes.
Oh, I got it. Okay, go ahead, move on.
Okay, if you'd like to move on to C, the approval and signature of patrol union MOU for the Denham School Resource Officer. This is something that it's my understanding that Commissioner Clark had requested previously in respect to the essentially the funding and the seniority clause as far as the security of that position.
So you haven't developed it yet, you just,
It is there. Do not, I can provide you a copy if you don't have one.
well, this probably is an exception to my concern, but what I'm concerned about, of course, is you independently or unilaterally negotiating with the union without our involvement and then coming to us with a fixed deal. But this is almost,
My understanding was that this was something that you had requested, so that was just a,
I requested that before you go and talk to the union about a side letter, that you come to us and tell us you need this, and we'll decide whether or not we want to get involved in that, or just give you the authority to negotiate that side letter yourself.
Oh.
Now, have you been in, is there a side letter here? I didn't see.
yes, there is.
Yeah, okay, so that's already been negotiated with them, they were aware of that,
Yes, and the union representative has signed.
and I think maybe this is an exception because of the situation, but in the future, what I'm looking for is that if you think you need a side letter, you come to us first and tell us you need a side letter, we'll decide how to proceed with whether or not we want to be involved in bringing the rep in from the union to talk to the end, or giving you authority to go in and negotiate. Okay? What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Move to approve the patrol union MOU for the Dedham School Resource Officer as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And they need a cruiser for that.
Well, there's another.
Oh, I'm sorry, just a second. I'll vote affirmative. We all set?
Yeah.
Trying to jump ahead here.
There's another item before that, Commissioner.
Yeah,
So there's another MOU that, because this is a, quote unquote, new position, the contract does not define the working hours. It did for a DARE coordinator. So essentially it is the same verbiage that already exists in the contract. I just had to include the verbiage of a school resource officer to have working hours outlined. And so those hours do include 8.5 hours Monday through Friday, 2 days off on weekends. And then during non-school months is a flexible schedule to still include the same hours per pay period. Same verbiage that had already existed.
all right, George. I'm gonna move to approve the patrol union MOU for the working hours / schedule of the Dedham School Resource Officer as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Real quick, and just for clarification, because I know we had the conversation last time, there was inclusion in the agreement that if the school, for whatever reason, stopped paying them, then obviously this deputy was really tied to that.
Yes, that was the prior.
How does this impact the union's position going forward, that if it's in the agreement that the commissioners, if it's not paid for, are somehow eliminating the position? So is the union going to read that particular element of it?
Yeah, so my understanding, speaking with the union, is that when it comes to positions, that is why the layoff clause is in the contract. The commissioners do have the authority obviously under the layoff clause in the contract. Now, the prior MOU just a minute ago was addressing that, which was my understanding. Commissioner Clark wanted to see in respects to if the funding were to go away and that position be eliminated, it wouldn't be, for lack of better words, low man on the totem pole that would lose his job. It would be the person tied to that position. So that MOU for the specific Dedham School Resource Officer waived the seniority clause of the layoff in the contract.
And the union understands and agrees to that.
They do. We obviously I don't think any union would be happy about that verbiage or really support it. We discussed it. Our position is that it was something that the candidate is aware of, and it is not something new to her, so she is aware of it coming into the position, and was fine with that. And for that very reason, I advocated and we supported it, and the union agreed in the circumstances.
I'm sure they don't agree with anybody getting laid off. But
Right.
I mean, if you lose your funding from the school, then you've got to reduce your staffing, and they must understand that. It's either the last man in or the person in the position. So
Right.
I think that heads off any issue that may come to us if this dissolves.
I agree.
Have we called a vote on that? We haven't yet.
I don't.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you need a cruiser for this person, and I understand they're gonna pay for that over 3 years or 2
Yes.
years or something like that.
Yes,
So
that is factored in
so we'll
there.
have to take the money out of your reserve account, buy it, and replenish that as we get that in. Is that correct?
That is fine. Obviously, it is in the contract. So, however, the mechanism and how we want to allot that money or reallocate that money as it comes in is up to your discretion. So that seems appropriate.
It's really up to, between Michael and Monica, how they're going to replenish that, because obviously the funds have got to go back into the cruiser reserve account
Right.
as we get it from the school. So leave that up to you.
I think that's probably the most appropriate measure on how to do that.
So we prepared today to authorize you to purchase, is that what you're asking?
If you are willing to do so, I would like to do that, yes. However, if you are going to require me to put it up to bid, then I'll also do that. We had just put these out to bids, I guess, well, we've done it a few times in the last year. So, I mean, it's
Well,
up to you.
excuse me, Andrew just went up to bid and couldn't find anybody to bid on it. Was he asking for something that that's different from what you'd be asking for? Is your market better than his?
I I wouldn't say really all that different. I do know that in speaking with ITS to see if there was something that they would be able to provide, there is, and that is how I came to those numbers, so that I knew I would be in the ballpark of what was needed for the contract purposes. So I am aware that ITS does have a Tahoe within these parameters that is available.
We do know from Andy though that they're not going to do bid assistance until October. So I mean, Quirk, Ellsworth, Morris, and the Dowlings isn't going to be able to bid. So I don't know why we're putting this off. You're hiring, you're going to hire this people soon.
Yes.
So what's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I'll move to approve the sheriff's office issuing a bid for the purchase of a 2024-2025 Chevy Tahoe with upfitting for the Dedham School Resource Officer.
So if I may, real quick, I think that's what Commissioner Clark is getting at. Do you want to require me to bid, or do you are authorizing?
No, I think we need to, well,
Oh.
we're going to avoid the bidding because of the situation.
You're saying avoid the bid?
Avoid bidding.
Right.
I think that's just a waste of
So
time.
I shouldn't be saying issuing a bid.
So you'd have to change that bidding.
Just take out the word bid.
Oh, yeah, no, gentlemen, I really think that's a waste of time. The dealers are not going to get their bid assistance indication until October, so they can't bid with the bid assistance, which means we're going to lose the assistance if we wait, and if we try to buy now. And Island Tech has a vehicle now, correct?
They have one that they can source. It is, I believe it's out of Massachusetts.
So I removed the issuing a bid.
I think,
So I removed the issuing a bid.
quick question.
Right.
So is that who, the most recent cruisers that we had, is that the agreement that they ended up prior, the commissioners had voted on and approved?
They've all been through
when
ITS.
they've done that?
Yeah.
So it could be just an extension if they're agreeable to that, of the prior bidding process.
I think for now, we need to add that this will be paid from,
The cruiser.
From the cruise reserve.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Hang on, let's have some adjustments to that.
All right, so I'm gonna change it now. Retract my motion. I'm gonna move to approve the sheriff's office for purchase of a 2024-2025 Chevy Tahoe with upfitting for the Dedham School Resource Officer to be paid from the Cruiser Reserve Fund.
I'll second that.
Yeah, everybody know now what we're going to do.
I think we're all.
Okay. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whenever you're ready.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
I thought when I was reading it, if something happened on the contract and they would have to essentially pay for the rest.
I
of the
did put a clause in there for the interest of the county so that we wouldn't.
I like that part.
If obviously we're fronting the money for some of this equipment, so should they terminate the contract, obviously they wouldn't have to pay for the wages for the time that they didn't, but they would be responsible for a prorated amount of the equipment for the life of the contract that would be left, so that the county's interest as far as expending money prematurely, for lack of better words, would not, we wouldn't be left holding a bunch of money spent.
I think that protects us very well. I'm just kind of curious that they didn't ask to have the Tahoe back. If they had to cancel next year, I would. It's paid for.
Well, it's time, that's my best of my questions. The gentleman that, I thought it was, I thought we were protecting ourselves well with that, so. The next up was the approval to change the list of the vehicles going out to sale. So I had initially brought to you guys a list, I believe it was last meeting before, with the vehicles that we are looking to set bids on for sale. And due to the cost of advertising it, I didn't want to advertise it multiple times, so that's why I waited to come back to you here now. After we looked at the ACO vehicle that was essentially being traded out, it is in a better operational condition than one of our spare cruisers that will need some maintenance coming up. And I'd like your permission to essentially swap that out on the list of vehicles being sold. So still the same amount of vehicles. We do have equipment outfitted already from the other older Explorers that we did strip. I would just like permission to essentially swap those out on the list of vehicles being sold.
And you're going to get rid of the pickup that is presently a patrol vehicle.
Correct.
What year is that?
That, let me look at my documents here. I believe it is a 2020.
2020?
That does sound right.
Geez, I'll tell you, I know it's got a transmission problem. Worst case scenario, it's gonna be replaced.
Right.
Check with a couple, not dealers, but chemical firms and whatnot. And that's maybe an $8,000 project. But also, you go online, you look at it, and they're getting between $20,000 and $25,000 for 2020 pickups with 100,000 miles on them. It just seems like in the best interest to fix that transmission, even if you don't want that vehicle, but keep it for something. It's a better vehicle than what we're giving. The vehicle we're giving ACO is over 100,000 miles on it, right?
Correct.
And this one's got what, 71?
No, I believe 95.
95,000? With a good transmission, which one's a better vehicle? The one the ACO officer is taking, or the one, or the cruiser with a new transmission?
Which truck you mean? Probably. I mean, the patrol one that we have now is, I believe, 2 years newer. It has probably 13,000 miles less on it. So, I mean, it's cosmetically, it's not in bad condition. It's, you know.
You put that on the front lawn and they find it's gonna be a transmission, you'd be lucky to get $5,000 out of that. The transmission is, nobody's gonna pay 25 on the front lawn, but at least I just don't know. Gentlemen, what do you think? This has been a moving target from day one.
I mean,
It's gonna nail it down.
what's your thoughts, Commissioner? Are you thinking move it to the ACO vehicle or?
I just see a lot of potential for value in that vehicle that we're going to lose by putting it on the front lawn with the bad transmission. I just don't know if there's a better way, but I don't know what else to do. And maybe it just isn't worth listening.
I guess I was also kind of confused, so I thought part of it, so was there a change up in what vehicle? was
Yeah,
ACO.
they're going to take the ACO's office of the vehicle
Yeah.
that he's giving up, put it in the spare, and taking the spare pickup, it's got a bad transmission, and selling it. So that's Sam. I'm sorry, I thought you had a comment. So I don't, just, you don't have a.
No, I mean, not really. I don't know enough about it to tell you what I think would be right.
I mean, here's another option. I mean, it's not ideal, but I can put up to bid the other 5, and if you'd like to consider or how you'd like to utilize that pickup, if at all, we can come circle back to it in a couple of weeks.
Because the overall problem is that, because we bought towers and we bought pickups and whatnot, the whole thing was is that we would get our value back on trade-ins. And
Right.
we're not getting, we're dealing now with dealers who are accepting trade-ins. So that's half the problem here. And I gotta tell you, just as soon as you put it on the front lawn, the value goes way down. We just have to give us what to do. But I don't know. What do you want to do? You just don't have an opinion? I mean, I don't know what else we'd use a pickup for. Do you, Michael? I mean,
No, I mean,
even if we fix this up and kept it,
you just gave one to maintenance.
the maintenance says the one they've got is good shape, no miles. They're not interested in the new one.
Already started undertaking the transition to the pickup truck. We registered it, transferred title, all that stuff, so. Yeah, it would be difficult. I'm not sure, other than them.
Okay, so let's just go with the list that he's proposing then.
All right, I'm gonna move to approve the sheriff's office retaining the Ford Explorer former ACO vehicle as a spare in the fleet and replacing that vehicle the bid list with unit number 8, a 2020 Chevy Silverado.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Next up, thank you, John. Next up is the request and approval to hire Christy Scribner, Denham School Resource Officer at step H on the patrol union wage scale, the start date effective July 19th. Christy is retiring, I believe, Thursday this week after 20-something years as an officer in Utah. And she does have family local to Denham. She is relocating here. She has a daughter as well that will be going to school in the area and so forth, so she
What's your
intends
pleasure, gentlemen?
on putting her
I'm going to move to approve the hiring of Christy Scribner as the Denham School Resource Officer at pay grade 12, step H, on the patrol union wage scale with the start date effective July 19th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Last discussion, and I would like to see an award of the quote for cruiser cameras. You should have received 4 quotes from 2 from each Motorola. As part of that, we had initially talked about 17. The reason for 2 quotes is because I wanted to get you the quote that you requested, but I also got one for 18 because of the inclusion of the school resource officer. So with that position being approved, I would ask that you look at the quotes for 18. It is something that I did factor into the financial quote for the school as well. So as far as that additional camera being paid for, it is, for lack of better words, baked into the financial agreement with the Denham School. So I would ask that you look at the quotes for 18. With that being said, I did provide just a quick synopsis with the quotes that outlines that. After speaking with both companies, they both interface with Spillman. They seem to be comparable. They both do offer financing. I did hear from Motorola yesterday, their representative, who I also believe is on Zoom. And they would require $75,000 upfront, with the remaining paid over 5 years. And GTAC would require 10% upfront, which was equivalent to approximately $17,000, with the remaining paid over 5 years. I did provide I think my synopsis right at the very bottom. You should just find a quick, as far as the costs that were outlined there. And then I also provided the complete actual quotes as well. I did ask, as mentioned, representatives from both GTAC and Motorola be available to you should you have any questions about the actual product or what we would be receiving. There is a representative here from GTAC. I believe they also have some on Zoom, and Motorola is on Zoom as well. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but I just assume kind of bow out of this and let you guys ask any questions you may have to them, or discuss the quotes as you'd like. I believe they probably both would like to each have an opportunity just to address you briefly, but that's your decision.
I don't know what to do. I gotta tell you, gentlemen, I'm sitting here thinking about a $500,000 project or less. 2 bidders with $311,000 difference. You know, I say to myself, what the hell's going on here? I mean, something doesn't jive, something isn't right here, and I'm not sure that discussion with GTAC and Motorola today is going to make me feel any easier about taking the low one or the high one. I mean, is there something in the low one that we didn't get that we should have? Is there stuff in the high one that we don't need or we're being gouged, I don't know, I just said it yesterday, this is baffling. I feel woefully inadequate to make a decision, and I'm not sure as I want to hear from either one today with regards to that product, because it comes down to dollars and cents. I mean,
If I may, Commissioner, just, I know that Ellsworth's camera system is something that you had seen, so just for perspective, when I did speak with Motorola, this is the exact same product that Ellsworth had. The difference is just obviously the quantities. But I did speak with Motorola representative, and I think he'd tell you the same, that this is the exact same package that Ellsworth has. When it comes to GTAC, I also sat down with them, and this is their comparable version of the exact same package as well. I think looking at them in quite a lot over the past, because this has been a process over a year now, there was a decent price discrepancy, I'd say, last year when we were providing these as well. What I found that is a lot of it has to do with Motorola's equipment is slightly more expensive on its face, but a lot of the difference in cost too that I found had to do with the operational costs for the years following. So beyond just the initial purchase of the equipment, it was the operational expenses that changed it. Now, with that being said, I will say I went over and had an opportunity, and I walked through Ellsworth's as well. I think it's a very slick system. I think it's very nice. I've also had an opportunity to see GTACs as well. I think they also have a very nice system. I think there is a big price discrepancy in speaking with them. I think that part of that price discrepancy comes from, there's some different quirks here, right? Motorola, it kind of was offering an incentive of equipping our interview room and our intoxilizer room at no cost as an incentive to incentivize their deal. GTAC was not offering that, but instead was offering heavier discounts to get our business as far as that goes. I guess what I at least ask is for you to, because I do know this gentleman did drive up here to at least, speak with you briefly at least, and I'm assuming Motorola would like to as well. So at the very least, I guess I would ask that you just listen to what they have to say or their products, and then if you can't make a decision today, I respect that, but ultimately, I obviously would like to see one, due to the fact that it has been a fairly long process and they are here, but I don't think the quotes would change any different.
They're both cloud-based systems, right?
They are, yes.
And the dollar amounts that we're seeing, is that purely equipment? Or
No.
are we
So-
gonna see like a yearly?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the quotes that you received, that is the equipment and that is the operational cost for 5 years.
5 years. Both of them are for 5 years.
Yes.
well, I don't want to be rude to these gentlemen. I know they have a lot of time and effort in it, and I'm not poo-poo with this whole thing, but I gotta tell you, Dakota, sitting here today, there's no way I'm going to approve a $500 million project. It just, this is not ARPA funds like we've had for the last 4 years. This is tax money. And I know Ellsworth likes their system, and I know they believe that buying Motorola, like everybody else in the county has a value. But that's too much money today for me to approve. And the other problem is that I always said that if you don't know the questions to ask, you can't get the answers you need. And this system is too complicated for people like John and I and Sam to understand without diving right in. And I'm not prepared to do that. I'm sure these gentlemen are. I would like to be reassured that what we're getting is adequate, and that we're not getting more than we need, and so on. I would like to have that by an independent source. I'd like to have somebody come in and validate this information, work with the salesman and you, and basically act as our representative. It's just what I would do if I said, we're gonna continue this 2 weeks, and I'm gonna sit down with the salesman, I'm gonna sit down with you, I wanna understand this explicitly. I'm not gonna do that. I don't wanna do that. I don't think I'm prepared or have the expertise to do that, but I would like to get somebody to represent us before we make a $500,000 purchase here. Are you opposed to that?
I'm not necessarily opposed, I guess my question would be, who, do you have somebody in mind?
Yes, I do. And the reason I selected this individual is A, he's got lifetime law enforcement experience. He has a consulting business now. He installed cruiser cameras and light cameras when he was in office and whatnot. It's Daryl Crandall, somebody you people know explicitly. The sheriff is very acquainted with him. Sheriff, are you opposed to having Daryl come down and on our behalf explore this whole thing and look into this?
No, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Darrell Crandall. And he's ethical, he's fair, and he's to the point. So if that's what the commissioners are requesting, I would have no opposition to that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that because I need reassurance. I need to know that whatever we spend and what the right thing to do. I mean, we bought laptops a year ago that you knew that they would expire, and whatnot. I don't want to get into a situation where 6 months down the road or 2 years down the road and whatnot, GTEC's system is obsolete and so on. So
I have great respect for Daryl. We have a great working relationship, and I think that's entirely appropriate. I mean, I will make the request, and if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. I completely agree with what you're saying. Again, I would just, because this individual specifically did drive up here, I'd like just to him an opportunity to introduce himself and give you his brief explanation.
5 minutes ago, about 3 for the.
And then I will bow down with
Okay,
the dead
okay.
issue, and I'll meet with Daryl.
Sure, I don't want to be rude, so absolutely, but before they do that, I'd like to have them know that they're going to be talking with an individual who represents us, get their confirmations, they're willing to work with this individual.
Yep.
Sam, John, I'm proposing that we contract with Daryl Crandall, who has a private police consulting business, to act on our behalf, to investigate, to review the proposals given to us so that we fully understand what we ultimately may be purchasing. His hourly rate is $80 an hour, and I'm proposing that we hire him and not to exceed $4,000. It is money well spent so that when we get all done or whatever decision we make, it comes from independent review from somebody who understands the complexities of this proposal a lot better than we do. How do you feel about that? Pardon?
I'm fine with it.
Sam, you okay with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so I'm going to move that we contract with Daryl Crandall, a police consultant from Aroostook County, to act on our behalf to review the proposals made by GTEC and Motorola for cruiser and body cameras.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Michael?
Quick question. Where are these funds? Where do you
We're
want
gonna take the 4,000, the same funds we would take the money for this year's purchase, whatever that is. At some point, we're gonna have to decide, but it'll come from the same source. That's my suggestion. Yeah, we'll take that from the same source. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's up to you, who you want to bring up here first, or you got 3 minutes, just like the general public.
Motorola's on Zoom. I do know he has a meeting with another agency at 10. So if he'd like to go first, Chris, are you on Zoom?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Chris Drake. I'm the regional sales manager for Motorola. Obviously work with Ellsworth and other agencies in the county. Like Dakota said, Ellsworth has the same system that he requested for you folks. So that's why the dollar amount is where it is. You can compare both Ellsworth's quote and the quote for the county, and they're both apples to apples. I think if you look at GTAC's quote and our quote, it wouldn't be the same, and that's where the discrepancy is. I know there are, instances where it can integrate with Spillman, but not to the extent that what our system does due to the fact that we own that CAD system. And also with your investments in the LPR cameras that you just approved to install, you wouldn't have that capability with another vendor. So we're gonna leverage your existing investments with the technology for the county to be able to communicate between the agencies and everyone else that uses our technology in the state of Maine, which would include Maine State Police and, you know, all the other sheriff's departments as well. So with that being said, I look forward to working with your consultant, and we'll get through this, and we can trim the fat off whatever you folks don't agree that you need up front, and go from there. So any questions, feel free to reach out.
We're gonna have a lot of questions, Chris, but I'm not gonna bore you or hold you up this morning with mine. I'd like to have these questions asked by our consultants. So thank you for your time and for coming in.
Thank you all. That's it.
Chris, your last name, please.
Drake. I like it. Drake. Drake.
Drake.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, good morning. My name is Matthew Griffin, and I'm with GTAC. I'm the regional sales manager for the Northeast. I started with GTAC about 35 days ago. My background is I'm a former police officer with the city of Keene, New Hampshire. I retired back in 2017. Prior to that, I was a search and rescue swimmer with the U.S. Navy. I've been in the body cam industry with Axon and with other companies for the better part of the last 6 or 7 years since I retired in 2017. And the only thing that I would like to say is that it was very important for me to drive up here because when it comes to your body cams, when it comes to your video solutions, support is a very, very big piece of the puzzle. And I would like it just to be noted that I'm here and I will continue to be here. I think it's a great idea to have a consultant. There's no fat for us to trim off of our quote. When I was asked to come with our best quote, that's exactly what we did. I went to my management. We've been working. Augusta, Maine has our products right now. Wilton, Maine has been trialing them. Kennebec has been trialing them. Many agencies throughout the Northeast. We have a great product. We're a core manufacturer, which means that we make our own products. We don't contract out. And we have the ability to integrate with everything that Motorola talked about as well. And so with that, I just don't want it to be lost. I sat on the other side of the table for the better part of 21 years. And the majority of times, if I had an issue with a video solution or any type of product, I would have to call an 800 number, be put on support, get a call back in 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a month. We don't do that. For better or for worse, you're stuck with me. I will be here at the meetings. I will work with Daryl, and I think that's a great idea. We have a great solution, and I'm excited to go against the competition.
So, Cody, have you shared each proposal with each other?
I do.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss the contrast.
Sure.
Again, you're willing to, of course, work with Daryl on my behalf.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Matthew. So is there anything further for today?
That I believe addresses everything.
Okay, well, I'm going to have Michael contact Daryl directly, get contact information, set up the whatever working agreement he has.
Did you have a discussion? Is he available and looking to do this week coming, or did he have a time frame that he provided?
Like we did.
Oh.
Just too preliminary. I just wanted to know if he felt very comfortable he could do it.
Yep.
You know, he's capable, it's better, and but he didn't say, I'm going to encourage him to do it. I mean, there's no reason that we should be delaying this, but. Yeah.
Seems reasonable. Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I just would like to thank commissioners and working with us to put this school resource officer program. I'm excited to do that. The school is excited. Christy was here last week for a week, and she had a chance to meet both HR, county administrator, and had some sit-down time with them. And she also was able to get a tour of the Dedham School and met the superintendent and the principal up there. All parties involved and excited about it. So thank you.
Very welcome. I hope it works out.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
We learned something when I come to these meetings.
You did? Well, I'll come up to yours once in a while. Teach you
Please
more.
do it. Sure. Sir, how are you? See you.
Is that me? Yeah, I'm planning on being. Yeah. Most of the sheriffs will do something. I just sent Mary Ann. Just forced it. That's okay, Mary Ann does it. Yeah, she's good. She's great. But that pharmacy meeting, we're just asking for the RSVP for lunch, how many folks we're gonna have there. Yep. I'm planning on, I've sent her and said I'm planning on. For sure. What happened? Yes. I talked to Mary Ann a little bit about it. This sounds like I'm a great deal. That's what I heard. I'm not ready to let that go, but I always like to get more information before I talk about, because that's. Are you usually trying? No, you're not, Scott. I think it's just two or three that's pretty set it usually.
Like seriously? No.
Very pleased. It's pushed hard for that. Oh, yeah. We're gonna, if they go, because it just, it allows people who are either concerned with victims, or you may have a situation, where some parents don't want their kids released because of their problems. How come?
I'm like, seriously? Who is this? I go, seriously?
How?
You don't know who this is.
Why
Like,
an
look up.
organization works with domestic violence wouldn't support programs. I just can't. I've got some suspicions. Well, I have some too.
Anybody you don't know.
I'm really considering how.
Yeah.
Sure. It's disappointing.
Anybody?
They just kind of blindside. Yeah. That's the big part that irritates me. And just
Looks
as
like
a
you
side
can buy
note,
one.
last week, the jail standards council had a meeting with our members in person. They had a kind of a strategy, and Tim Curtis told me it's Steve Gordon reaffirmed today that went well, building relationships, having so understand the numbers well. It's been, that's a good position, but Tim feels that we've got some good ground. Constantly having that. I'm impressed.
I'm like, you don't know. Ever back.
Association is needed, so.
Oh,
And I'm not trying to. You already know where to share. Just double check. Yeah.
Some people don't. I guess the order, bring back. Get to
Safe, everything to the end of the second, and then it's hurry. I'll see you in the night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, just because you're the bond commissioner, I live in Orrington.
Oh, okay.
Pleasure.
Here's some of the stuff we got lined up.
Thank you.
Yes. Just says the shipyard. Commissioner, was that strategic to clear the room?
Pardon?
Was that a strategic move to clear the room?
Yeah.
Might be interesting to note, Commissioner, that I found these artifacts in between wall sections. And this was a convention in 1909, Canada County 1909. Look at the menu, if you can see. It's pretty good. I don't know what's on.
Go there right now.
No, that's the actual. Sure is.
So I'm gonna call us back into session. Sam on? Sam, you around?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Moving on to maintenance. Morning, Dennis.
Good morning.
Morning, Dennis.
You have your monthly report. Anything to add?
No, not unless you have a question.
I move to accept and file the maintenance monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Commissioners, I'd like to request that you acknowledge the lateral transfer of Ramsey Abraham from full-time to part-time janitor effective June 20, 2025, and approve the pay rate at step 5F 2048 through the end of the year.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I'd like to also request approval to go out to bid for snow removal for the upcoming season to include the courthouse campus and the Hancock site.
I move to approve the issuance of a bid request for snow removal at the courthouse campus and Hancock site.
I'll second that.
Would you entertain two separate contracts or one contract for both?
I think one for both.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
If it were further away and had much different conditions, I think it'd be wise to consider. Item D, discussion of the easement acquisition at the Hancock site. As you know, we had a situation whereby the placement of our building was affected by an easement that was written into our newly and developed and recorded deed. And Commissioner Clark and I met with the sellers, and the genesis of this device was the power line that provides power to us. And this was not owned by Versant Power, but was a private enterprise. And so this easement was there to provide access for maintenance and other work and so forth. And so the sellers thought the best resolution would be to surrender that easement to the county, or surrender the ownership of the poles and infrastructure to the county, and then dissolve the easement. And we would take over the maintenance of those devices, and also would agree that in the future, if they needed access on the end by building B, that we would allow that to happen. And I think there were going to be attorneys approached and language to that effect drawn up for your approval.
So basically, they put the power line in and wanted to retain ownership because they thought they would continue it on in the future, and they wanted to be able to do that. Since then, they have changed plans. That's not going to be the case. Although there may be a clause in this transfer of ownership, giving them the ability at their option at some point. And we'll have to negotiate how that works, but we will give them that option if it's somewhere down the road. This really is a no-risk situation for us. That was a very well-done line put in. It was done well. It's almost maintenance-free. There's a couple trees we might trim once every 5 years. Likelihood, any cost to us for maintenance is nil. And I think this is a good way to solve the issue of our leach field being within the easement and potential for a back of a EOC for being in the easement. And simply remove the easement altogether. Now we own the property without an easement. And I would suggest, gentlemen, that we go through with this purchase and direct our attorneys to start the paperwork to do that.
Do we need a motion on it, or do we?
I think we need a motion Michael, we need something here, don't we, that authorizes somebody to.
To basically hire legal counsel to commence with,
To commensurate that,
basically to work on that deed.
just a motion to approve council to enter in agreement to transfer the easement from Jordan's to the county.
I'll second that.
Well, just seconds, Sam, I think John's typing something. Must review.
So they'll just say that, move to hire legal counsel to transfer easement to the county from the Jordans.
Okay. You second that, Sam?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Michael, now that Jordan's has retained new counsel with Eaton Peabody dissolving and whatnot, might be a good time to get that amended for the set aside that we have. Yeah. As well as getting this. Probably wouldn't be the same document, but although it might be, amend that document to include this acquisition of this. But I think the easement is in that document, isn't it?
It's in the original, I think the description and everything is, but yeah.
So maybe we can amend that
I'll go
original
back and
document,
talk with her.
remove the easement and to see if it's necessary to extend the time period for that set aside.
And looking at the agreement too, I think that for that escrow agreement set aside as well. I think the big change, because there weren't a lot of specific dates, but it did indicate that if it lasted longer than a year, then we have to pay like $500 fee to essentially have the trust continue to hold those funds until they were expended, but we'll come back with something.
Any further action on this? We will go to the new, just by way of reference, we had no budget set aside for Hancock site for 2025. We set up an account for them and took money from our community benefits account, put in there for Dennis to use for upgrades and routine maintenance and development out there. And quite honestly, he's getting low on funds and we still have a lot of work to do. I've been very careful, as you know, over the last year or so in tapping our CBA funds because we need 500,000 of that for the EOC share, our share of the EOC building grant. But it's become obvious to me that we'll be lucky to break ground this fall and good chance that we will not need to spend that 500 in 2025. That means by 2026, we'll have gotten another year's worth of revenue from that CBA. So I think it's safe for us to use some of that funds and whatnot to continue to support Hancock site. And so that we don't need to keep coming back to the well, for Monica and Dennis and whatnot. And understanding what's left to do out there, not what's left, but what we'd like to get done this fall, some of this fall and whatnot, before his budget is set up. I'd like to suggest that we that we take $100,000 from CDA and put it into the Hancock Site Maintenance Fund for Dennis's use to continue bringing that up to what we'd like to see in the future. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Excuse me, is there still a motion on the floor for the
Yeah,
hire,
is there a vote?
hire of attorney?
Not sure if there's a vote on it.
I think that
There was a vote,
there was a vote.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and you're requesting an additional 100,000, is that right?
Right.
In addition to,
In addition to what's already in there.
Yeah.
Right, no, yeah, and 100,000 from CBA. Gentlemen, how you feel about that? Is that okay?
Where are we at with our balance in the CBA right now?
Just about a million?
I have this information with me every week in case somebody asks, and today I don't have it.
Don't we know it's either side of $1 million right now?
Yeah, safely.
Yeah, it's either side of $1 million. And we haven't received that 25
No,
revenue, so by December of this year, that should be 1.5, something like that.
yeah, I hate to,
What's the account that we would be transferring the funds to?
52,
So what?
it's accountant number 52. Community benefits.
Everyone's you have an account you can transfer it to.
No, that's right, it just works internally.
What's the, what do we call it other than the number?
It's the community benefits account.
So what?
Community benefits
No,
account.
but I don't see where it's going to for the.
Oh, what is it? You have an account number for where it's going?
I don't.
Or what's the
name of it?
What do you call it?
Is it the Hancock?
Hancock site maintenance.
Hancock EOC site.
Hancock.
Yeah, it's a good monitor. We know where best to allocate it.
We don't really care what we call it, as long as we understand what it is.
Exactly. And we still have some mop-up work to do with those other appropriations. I'll clear this up as well.
You got a number?
1.6 actually right now.
1.6?
Yeah.
So that'll be over 2 by December if we don't tap into any more of it, right? Okay, a lot of wiggle room there with regards to reserving that 500,000.
All right, I'm gonna move to transfer an additional $100,000 from the CBA to Hancock EOC site fund.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Dennis, anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
RCC, good morning, Bob. We have your monthly report. It's always something to add to that. It's always.
Well, it's kind of
good
early.
reading. Good reading.
Well, I appreciate the Commissioner's explanation of the fire department dynamic up in Hancock County. One of my comments was we had the accident on Stone Mill Road a couple weeks ago where our 911 system shows generally reflects the contracts we have with outside agencies. And when they call Hancock County for Milford, we were told, no, it's not Milford anymore. That was a lot of confusion, so I appreciate the explanation, and we'll have to work to get the state's 911 system updated to reflect the actual entity versus who we may or may not have contracts with. Other than that, we've had quite a spate of structure fires over the last week that aren't reflected in my report. And our 911 call volume, I haven't had a chance to get all the numbers yet, but that's gone up 25% over last month, so we're in our upward summer swing. It's just pretty busy down there. I spent a couple hours late last week just helping out with call volume, because it all comes at once. And it's been a lot of weird calls this month.
So you're getting actual calls for service as opposed to 911 hangups and stuff like that, right?
Well, we're still seeing those too, but it just seems like
Your uptick in
but
reals,
our actual numbers are up.
real incidents, yeah.
I'm gonna move to accept
As
and
usual.
file RCC, the report is presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anything else, Bob? Thank you. District Attorney would like to establish a reserve lines of PA training. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, how are you?
Monica and I had talked in reference to a check that I had received from the Maine Prosecutors Association. It was a reimbursement check that we were not aware that we were gonna receive for 2024 Maine Prosecutors Conference. It just came to us, and it was in reference to shared funds from the Harold Elfon Center grant. So what I wanted to do is, instead of putting it back into 2024 where those funds have already been, 2024 where those funds have already been expended, I wanted to see if we could establish a reserve line to put this check into for training for employees in our office, for future trainings that need to come out.
You don't have that line now.
We don't have, I have nothing. We have no reserve line at all for training for our department.
Monica, you have any problem with that?
No.
Obviously, it's a good cause.
How much is the check for?
It's for $875. It's a start. So, I would just like to see if we get approval to establish a reserve line.
All right, I'll move to establish a reserve account designation, the next thing, sorry, for the district attorney training.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Michelle.
If I may, Commissioners, real quick, I just spoke with Josh. I just wanted to get some clarification real quick on the approval for the cruiser. Under the financial contract, the breakdown that I provided, in that cost of the cruiser, I also had the radar and the laptop and the docking station, warranties and stuff. So usually I get that radar from Stalker because we go direct to the vendor there. The cost is factored in that contract. Are you okay if I do that? Does that cover that?
Well, you have an equipment reserve account, right?
I do, yes.
Can't you take your equipment out of that and replenish that as you get it?
Yes, absolutely. I guess my question is, the approval that you provided, you're okay with me purchasing that equipment because it's factored
Oh,
in
yeah,
the.
yeah, I think that's a good.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
At least it is made, gentlemen. You okay? All right. No, you're all set.
Oh, thank you.
Morning, Josh.
Morning, gentlemen.
You have your human resource director's report. Anything to add to that, Joe?
Nothing.
I'll move to accept and file the human resources monthly report is presented.
So if I may, gentlemen.
Just a second.
Okay.
Motion made to accept the report.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, Josh.
So if I may, gentlemen, I prepared a quick summary on the salary survey results that I submitted. In the fall of 2024, Aroostook County had contracted with L. Bouchard and Associates LLC to conduct a comprehensive wage and benefits study. This study was drafted in December 2024 and sent out in January of 25 to participating counties in Maine. At the end of January, there were 11 out of the 16 counties that had participated in the wage study. Initially, Hancock County had not participated in this. I received this wage study in April and began incorporating Hancock County into the study using our employee information. In addition to the Hancock County information, I also produced a cost of living report showing the difference in cost of living by county, with Cumberland County being the highest and Aroostook County being the lowest. This information was based off data from the Living Wage Institute and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is key information to consider with the wage study, as Hancock County is currently the 5th highest cost of living county in the state of Maine. With that data in mind, I determined Hancock County needs to aim to be in the top 5 in relation to our employee pay by position compared to what other counties are paying for the same position respectively. This will ensure our hiring is competitive. On Exhibit A that was submitted with the agenda items, you will see each position listed with the corresponding counties that participated in the study. In addition to adding Hancock County employee data, I also added Tile I, which is the Hancock County rank of pay, which is a rank score showing where Hancock County rates in compensation for that position against other counties. This helps to show us which positions need improvement in order to be both competitive in recruiting new talent and also retaining our employees.
Those positions highlighted in green reflect that position to be in the top third of Maine counties in terms of their regular pay, which correctly match the cost of living for Hancock County. Those in yellow reflect their average, but still below where they should be when factoring the cost of living. Those in red indicate those positions are in the bottom third of compensation for all participating counties. Due to the majority of Hancock County positions showing a need for improvement, I recommend we look at a targeted, 3 to 5 year period to address those positions slowly but surely for both exempt and non-exempt employees. For those union positions, however, we would not be able to make suggested changes until their current CBA is up and salary negotiations can take place. Another option to consider is improving only the positions listed that showing increases needed. This may be problematic, however, as adjusting some positions and not others is likely to cause problems with the wage scales, which is why I do not recommend this course of action. A gradual increase each year would start to address the problem, but not break the budget. An effective way to achieve this would be to add an additional percentage on top of the annual COLA until those positions are in the top third of Maine counties relative to their cost of living. There are some positions, however, that will likely require greater increases over the next few years in order to keep up with the market. The two positions in the IT department, as well as the registry of probate position, to name a few, are currently near the bottom in compensation for their positions when compared to both county and private sector positions. There are several other positions noted on the survey that can be looked at for higher than normal wage increases. Cost of living is a huge factor to consider when recruiting new talent into Hancock County. If we fall behind in terms of compensation, it would be very difficult to attract and retain our employees in an area that gets more expensive to live in each year. Some key information to keep in mind when reviewing this report are as follows. Not every position we have in Hancock County was included with this initial report. However, I was able to research and find additional information for the positions not included in the Aroostook County wage study. For positions with multiple incumbents, the average hourly rate was taken for that position. This could create a pay disparity if you have several employees that are maxed out on that pay scale for that position. The summary report from the Maine County Compensation Benefit Survey is included as well for additional information. This report also breaks down how the data was interpreted for each position. Lastly, several positions are salaried positions that are showing as an hourly rate. This was done to compare correctly to the other counties listed. In these cases, their current salary was divided by 52 weeks and then divided by 40 hours to find the correct corresponding hourly rate. Moving forward, we will have biannual salary surveys that will be completed in January and July of each year from the Maine Association of County Managers, Administrators, and Clerks. This will help us stay on track and let us know if our compensation is keeping up with the competition. I hope that we can use the data presented in this report to compensate our employees fairly for the tremendous service they give to Hancock County every day. Again, I realize this cannot be done in one budget cycle and recommend we use a 3 to 5 year time period for gradual and conservative growth in our compensation for our employees. With that, gentlemen, you have any questions?
I don't know if I have any questions on it, but it's not like how you've laid it out.
Thank you, sir. It was a couple month project.
Yeah.
Incorporating all the data.
Well, I think one of the problems is that we've been trying to address some of these haphazardly. We haven't done it, And quite honestly, since we did away with that compensation review committee, we really haven't had a good way to fairly and equally do this. But I don't know. This is timely though for those union wage scales because we're going to start negotiations here in another couple months with the Sheriff's Department on that
Correct.
CBA. So it's a good time to at least look at that group. And it may be good fodder for our negotiation, coming to an agreement using this document to help us do that. So as a practical matter, how do we move forward, Josh?
I think for today, sir, as long as we can agree that moving forward over the next few months in collaboration with Monica, the treasurer, as well as Michael, maybe even the department heads as well, look at, a percentage that we can all fall in line with on top of COLA, that, we can work a multi-year process. Like I said, 3 to 5 years would be good, to try and get us on that upward slope. So we're not trying to make all these overnight and then tank our budget at the same time.
Just coming into the budget planning, so it all kind of makes sense that we've been tackling now. So it makes sense to me. To have it get together.
Making some choices, so. Well,
How soon will we set the COLA?
So hopefully, I'm gonna have that conversation with you later today.
Okay.
So, and that was the thought process, and obviously we can revisit this again if you wanna have us plug in some numbers to start with as part of that process.
so we'll have that discussion later.
Yeah, later on during the county administrator.
Okay, and lastly, commissioners, I just have one more item, the policy update to the probationary period.
We're just changing a little bit of the wording, right?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change, Commissioner. This is really just adding the final approval needed from the commissioners to the probationary period language. That wasn't clearly in
It's a
there.
substantial change in the fact that we haven't been following it. I see nothing in statute that allows a department head to terminate the employment of a probationary employee without our approval. It does say they don't need just cause, and neither do we. But I still don't see anywhere in statute that gives the department head that unilateral authority. And I think to make it clear, that's why I asked Josh to research this and look at this and put this in here, that even probationary employees require commissioner approval for termination.
All right, well, I'm going to move to approve the proposed personnel policy amendments contained in section 9, probationary period as presented.
Oh, I second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We have our monthly bills and warrants in front of us, gentlemen. What's your pleasure?
Move to accept and approve the monthly bills and warrants as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Monica, you have a request for update with job description?
Update to the job description and requesting approval to move the current finance assistant, Mary Jordan, to the position of finance coordinator on the 9.1 scale, which is where the previous finance coordinator was.
And you're also hoping to get it backdated to the beginning of the year, right?
Preferably, yes.
So I gotta ask, so how much are we talking about? That have an effect on?
I have room in the budget because I have a little bit of a cushion in there for overtime.
You haven't had much overtime,
No.
so we cover it.
Mhm.
So- I move to approve, sorry, remove approval of updates to the job description for the position of finance coordinator and authorize the transfer of Mary Jordan from her current position as finance assistant, non-exempt wage scale, 8I1, to finance coordinator, non-exempt wage scale, 9.1-I-1, as recommended by the Human Resource Manager and the Treasury effective January 1st, 2025.
I'll second that.
Any discussions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. You're on, Michael.
I'm on, ready to go. All right. So Monica and I have continued to work through the attorney and on this tax anticipation note. And essentially, we have issued the letters out to the various financial institutions. We're waiting for them to come back. But at the next step in the process, the attorney recommended and has provided you with a lengthy vote that can be summarized in the motion that was on the top of the page, that essentially would allow Monica and I to now continue to review the quotes that come in and then continue down the process of working that through to provide it to a final commissioner authorization and sign off and approval. So I did, as I said, I gave you the vote. You can read that whole thing or reference it as provided, however you want to do that. But essentially being asked to authorize the $3.5 million 2025 tax anticipation note to be adopted in the present form.
All right, I move that the vote entitled vote to authorize 3.5 million 2025 tax anticipation note be adopted in the form presented in this meeting.
I'll second that.
All this does is say that we're gonna set aside $3.5 million for a tan, right?
Yeah, basically ahead of us.
Doesn't say how we're gonna get it.
Well, this will be part of the process. So now we'll take those bid quotes that we get back from the various financial institutions. Monica and I will review them, be able to make a decision and essentially a recommended award and bring all that back with the final language from the attorney at the hopefully 22nd meeting. Your second page should have had the outline of kind of what that process would look like in each one of those steps. So
Commissioner, this is an issue that in the past, we have actually borrowed TAN money from unorganized territories director. He had a substantial amount of money. He loaned it to us at the standard rate. And we were able to do that because of the LD that's pending that puts financing, that the budget may come back again. He's skeptical to do that.
this was gonna be the other part before you took your final vote. I was gonna bring you up to speed to basically tell you, because of Eaton and Peabody's attorney and the closing of that, we obviously got behind schedule. So when we had those initial conversations and put all this into motion, and obviously the Millen Billings, the UT supervisor manager was here as well, didn't feel comfortable doing that because we didn't know where we were gonna end up. So that particular citizen petition referendum didn't get the required signatures to be added to the ballot. So that is pretty much a moot point from there now. So it does put us in the position, again, before you take your vote, but it does put us in the position that we've issued the RFP anyway. So those will have to be obviously open and accepted. Whether or not you take action on them, you did reserve the right. So just so you're aware. But whether or not we could pursue that quickly and come up with a legal framework in the time period we need, I guess is something that we'd have to talk with them.
Has it cost us anything
So far, it's just been the attorney, basically the attorney, working with the attorney to get the required paperwork.
Well, that's really the cost. I mean, that's the difference between dealing with Miller and dealing with the attorney, is that the cost of the attorney, correct?
Well, even with Miller, I mean, we still are gonna have to have some type of legal review of that because we're not sure, and I don't think Miller was even sure exactly how that went down. Or even technically the legality of how we would put that together. So, I mean, we would obviously have to do some scrambling over the next couple of weeks if you want to consider that, but regardless, at least we would continue through this process if you voted to allow us to continue for us to at least see where we end up with the entertainers otherwise. Unfortunately, again, the other part of this is the longer this gets drawn out, the closer we get to that revenue coming in and all that. And I guess this legislative session, there was some legislation passed that allowed for the changing of the dates, allowing more than one installment. But unfortunately, that doesn't do a lot for us really right now because we're calendar year. So it gives more flexibility to really the fiscal year. Government's not the one. So this will likely, regardless of what you end up doing, will again put us back in the motion of getting through this process, which next year will obviously be much more fluid and less lengthy.
So no matter what we do, we need to do this today, correct?
So, I mean, I think you need to continue through the process, and if you want us to simultaneously on a second track, try to pursue that thing with Miller, just so you know, then, you know, we can do that as well. Or I can do that. I don't want to commit Monica to it, but we can at least try to get information as to what we would do with that.
Yep. So, yeah, just a call vote on it, right? Or you already voted?
Yeah, no, you haven't voted.
You made the motion? Okay, I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So the next item is department heads and treasurer and all of us work on the upcoming budget. To meet the July 22nd meeting discussion, rather than kind of last year putting the cart in front of the horse, we kind of wanted to start out with the horse out of the gate and find out what the commissioners want to do about some specific questions that will help us, as well as other department heads when they submit their budget, know where they stand. So one of those items was obviously what had been mentioned earlier was the cost of living allowance. And we did quickly or briefly discuss this issue with department heads at the last department head key leader meeting. And of course, we went back and forth, but we didn't really go through each department putting in their amount and suggestions. It seems like the general consensus is that they would very much like to have commissioners again consider keeping those non-union employees in line with what the union ones are. And right now, of course, we have no idea what the law enforcement unit is going to be, but we had for RCCs 5%, and then the jail, I believe, was 6% next year. So you're still in that round period. So obviously, that's been one of those things that have been thrown out at 6% again, and that's what was issued or finally agreed upon last year by you guys as a collective group as well. And there were some minor changes by the EAC, but overall, that's kind of where you stood. So for us, in order to be able to kind of plug into the massive spreadsheet, the number of percentages to get those pay scales back out so that we have them for the proposed year, the kind of first question we need to know is what you want to do about the COLA. And then second part, not to skip by what we just talked about with the salary survey, whether you want to factor in anything else at this point in time in terms of an additional percentage for those adjustments, whether you'd like us to start with those numbers and then you're going to continue as you move through the budget process to maybe collectively end up seeing what those numbers look like if you added additional percentages.
Well, globally, adding an increase to the existing scale to address Josh's concerns about salary equity, I don't think is the right way to go, because that means everybody gets that increase. And we don't have everybody in red. We have some of those in green. And I think the way to address that is through a review and an approval process to adjust the grade for that position so that the grade reflects what we want to do with any increases with that position instead of just a global increase in the scale, which gives everybody the increase. So I don't think meeting Josh's concerns with the COLA is the way to go. I think we should just decide on what. And here we go again, because every time we try to plug the COLA in, so that gives the department heads an idea what the overall budget's gonna look like, the proposal, it somehow gets cast in stone. You know what I mean? You tell the employees and everybody, it's just a number today. We'll refine that later. But somehow, it's never really less. I can bet you that. And there's always this complaint that, geez, you want to propose a 3% increase in your COLA. Minute, just plug the number in. But that doesn't seem to, I don't know what we'll do about that. It's up to-
I mean, I would suspect at this point, just being honest, that's probably the same, you're gonna get the same reaction, it's gonna be the same thing that we had last year.
Like it's different.
Yeah, so I don't see that change. In regards to the changing of grades and stuff, I guess, and I have not discussed this with Josh at all, the human resources or any of that part of it, but I grow concerned when we start just picking and choosing the changing of grades, because those grades are supposed to be based on the job descriptions and the actual functions, not necessarily where. So if we're gonna do a large scale adjustment like that to target certain things, that, as you know, you helped design it. I mean, that, the basis for our scales, our wage scales, the grades are all, and the job descriptions are all tied together based on a survey or summary that had been completed, 20 some odd years ago. So if the commission was gonna go down that route, I'd rather recommend that we look at maybe, could be possibly done internally, but maybe looking at an outside consultant as well to see what that would cost to have somebody come in and just re-evaluate all of the system, the scoring and what we use. Because even now when we change them, I know there's not technically a scoring done, but internally, we do look at those factors to kind of make sure that we're not recommending to you changes that are completely out of the parameters that should be considered. So
when we first initially did this, that was a very valuable tool to set up the job description and then plug in the grade based upon that. But I gotta tell you that the department heads quickly learned that if you want to increase your grade, you have to rewrite your, so instead of setting a grade for a particular job description, they selected the grade and they wrote a job description that warranted that grade. And so it kind of defeated the person.
oh, I agree. I mean,
It requires a real honest evaluation of what the job description is.
And I think part of the change now going forward is that as a county, you've invested heavily in human resources the last couple of years. We're now going to have an HR person that arguably will be looked to make sure department heads are doing that, as well as myself as a county administrator, to say, really show us what the difference is. And we kind of do that right now, but the reality is we can't really develop an honest grade for any position using the scale and those factors that are considered, because they're not necessarily applicable to today's standards either. So that is a challenge. I don't disagree with you. I think probably historically that's what has, whenever there seems to have been a difference, that you've kind of made basically the shoe fit the foot that you want to put it on. And then that becomes the new standard going forward. And then over time that becomes, but the problem with that is that you have no parity or equity in those scales anymore and those grades. And that's what I think, if we continue to do it, and now we do that at a larger, more focused type of approach, you're going to create further disparities unintentionally, but I think between positions and what their real value is. So we're going to end up possibly having positions a higher grade than they really are justified to be. Hence, we'll be paying more long-term anyway. We may correct those one or two areas, but we may end up collectively. But I also understand your concern about arbitrarily just putting it across the line, and those are the discussions that we did have internally was, yeah, how do you do that and not give somebody more, but penalize somebody else? And, you know, unfortunately, that's some of those factors that you're gonna have to weigh, but that's just my 2 cents worth.
Because the other pet peeve I have is those that are not on the scale. You can have a 25-year department head retire. Somebody come in with almost no experience in that job. They get the COLA based upon what that guy got on his 25th year. So there's no scale for, especially our elected officials, on taking.
So that also gets back to that need to develop, and we know we have that too, like for the non-exempt or the exempt non-union employees, coming up with a system that one can be applied to them and allow for those changes. But two isn't just an automatic. Now, some of that, like obviously the other positions, you can handle that with job description again, because the job description will also outline pay range. So just because they've been here 25 years and they're at top of scale, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna come in and advertise right away at that amount. And you would presumably, following your own policy, we wouldn't really be able to come in with anything higher than C unless we wanted to recommend that approval through you to go outside the process, but there would have to be a legitimate reason that we have to be able to explain to you in order for you to even consider. But that is one of the drawbacks, and that's been part of the discussion. The department heads kind of are, they're part of the non-union exempt scale, but all they get is that goal. So there's no adjustment for really length of time or anything else once they're here. And that is one of our bulleted point items that we're gonna work on. It's just, there's no easy solution right away that isn't gonna somehow either negatively impact or perhaps not be accepted by the overall group, but it is what it is.
So for the purpose today, you just need to.
So I'm looking for a COLA. I mean, if you tell me to go back out, and I'm not just throwing numbers out here, whatever you come up with. But if you said 3% again, like we did last year, then we would plug that all in. I was very honest, and we had a kind of a little bit of a spirited, quick debate about the department heads would like you to know what they would like to have. And I told them that's what the notation line is for, but we weren't gonna create separate scales for individual departments if we didn't have to do that, so.
But did we put 3 in there?
3 last year for
Tentatively ended
placeholder
up what?
at 6.
Ended up at 6. Well, I think we ought to be more realistic and so that we know what it is. And I know you're opposed to it. You'd like to see the, whatever what is it you use, gross national product or something?
2.5 is what it's predicted,
2.5?
but fine with 5.
I just think the same thing, 5. We're thinking. Sam, just consultation.
Yeah.
Sam, we're thinking a tentative COLA. Okay. 5%. I don't know if it even needs to be voted on. I think
No,
we
I
can
mean,
use
this
that.
is just,
use that.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna be taking, you're gonna have to
Take
take
official
multiple
action.
other, times later. It's just really to help Mark and put those things into the spreadsheet just to have it ready on time to present to you on the 22nd, at least for those first ones.
So, excuse me, before you leave your budget topic, though, I understand we're going to take HR out, make it.
So yeah, that's my next one. I actually had like
Good.
3 or 4 items. So the
Okay.
next question was whether or not, so we didn't want to go to the trouble of separating those and then have to put them back together. If the commission wasn't open to that concept of trying to separate HR into its own separate department now with its own department number and obviously subsequent budget built off of those costs. So,
I think that's a given, isn't it? HR, I mean, he's no less a department head than any of the others, guys, was already.
Obviously, that was the other part of it, that, that would make it even clearer that he is a department head, and we would have to adjust the one line on the personnel policy. If you recall last year, you did insert that into it, in the listing in the different departments.
So Dennis,
Yes.
the other issue is a separate department for the Hancock site.
Yes, that was my part C.
Great minds run right.
We're going around the same.
Yeah, Mike's all over it.
So, I mean, I can tell you, we did meet, Dennis was not available, but Dave, was. We did meet as a group, and one of the first questions I asked was whether or not just to clarify, because Andrew Sankey from EMA had told us this before, but asked him about if any of the EOC operations or any of the other grant funds that he currently gets are going to be able to be basically paid to the county in support of those operations. And his response was unequivocally no. If anything, he's losing funding. He certainly is going to get additional funding to support anything else was his position. So to be honest with you, we kind of started as a group. It was Chuck from IT, Bob from RCC, Monica was there as treasurer, obviously, myself, and Andrew and Dave, basically representing maintenance, who started talking through the process. And originally, the first thing we were talking about was having one site. But then quickly that conversation evolved back into, well, why is the Hancock site going to be any different than the DA's office or the jail, where maintenance is already, for the most part, incorporate all those costs into there? So could they not, each department, rather than creating a whole separate department, could each department not include an additional line item in their department budget that goes to the Hancock site? Especially right now where year one, we're not going to necessarily have revenue coming out, because we won't necessarily be immediately have those other two buildings, from what I understand, in a position where we could automatically start getting some revenue back, where you might want to see a site budget or whatever the case is. But that's where we ended up. The majority kind of were, I can incorporate into my current budget just as an additional line item. That's what we'd like to see. Dennis wasn't there, but I think Dennis may have a different position maybe about the centralization, but if not, just to give you your shot if you want to add anything into it, but.
Yes, either way is fine with me. It's just that if we're gonna establish a separate cost ID center for this location, we should do it. But if my budget is going to include just the same 0610006 cleaning fund, include expenses for the Hancock site, I can do that as well. I want to do whatever's easiest and best for the county. My assumption was that we want to have some type of mechanism whereby we can track what the operating expenses are out there. And a lot of it we can do easily because we know where fuel's going to be delivered and we know what those tickets are. But with the like common supplies, it might be a little more difficult to do.
See, this is a precedent setting. I mean, the sheriff has civil process, he has the law enforcement, I mean, it's all in the one department head. He has different divisions within that and different budgets, and I think revenue is the big issue, Michael. If at some point you start developing revenue out there, I think that should go to the Hancock site for development.
The only thing that I would emphasize or clarify on that is that it's much easier with the sheriff, because that's still an overarching department. It's the sheriff's office, and that's what it applies to. Hancock site in of itself is going to have some EMA, going to have some, IT stuff, going to have some RCC stuff. So there's going to be, it's a combination of resources, including commissioners, because obviously meetings and other stuff, they're all going to be lumped into this one site.
So whatever else.
So if we do develop a quote unquote Hancock site budget, then arguably the question becomes, who's paying for it? It's RCC pay for its percentage of the square footage of it, or, I mean, what mechanism? So that would be the next conversation if you decided to go that way. Is how do we break that up in a fair way that you're not just saying to EMA, oh, your budget's going to take on all of the Hancock site, but 75% of it has nothing to do with you. Sort of approach,
Well, when you say nothing to do with it, I mean, when the Sheriff's Department developed a full-time civil process and did 2 offices. We didn't take Dennis's cleaning fee out of civil process and add it to his cost of business. Now, I think there are some things, and I'm not sure how Andy with EOC, what specific cost need to come back to his department.
But he would still include it in his department number 2 budget.
Some of that's gotta go back. Chuck is going to have expenses out there, whatnot, that they have to go back to Chuck's budget.
I think that's what,
I mean, as far
so
as-
that's what we're saying.
As far as cleaning the whole building, the EOC building, I think that's Dennis's responsibility, and it's out of the cost of doing business. We're going to increase his responsibilities up there. And whether it's because he's got the EMA office, he doesn't charge EMA to clean this office here.
Right, and I don't anticipate we charge them out there. either,
Correct,
right?
that's what I'm saying, so, but there could be revenue in 26 because we now have a meeting room that we may rent out. No, so if that becomes a revenue, we should see that in a separate department rather than going into the big pot of gold here, or Dennis's revenue or something, so.
And that wouldn't necessarily be an issue for us to set that up, if we got to that point for, now, I'm not sure, I mean, yeah, I'm still not even sure about the timeline, because there's still a lot of things that gotta come into play before they're even gonna start actual construction, so. And that seems to be quickly eroding because time is flying like anything, so I mean, the time to that probably isn't gonna be early, so I think would be spring of next year, but.
Nevertheless, it's well within the 26 budget year.
So we could create a department budget that has our revenue item just for that. If we thought we're gonna, but even when we get all that completed, we still don't have funds unless you're coming up with additional money. And then again, I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but unless you have additional money to tap into, those other 2 buildings, we haven't even really started to decide what we're gonna do.
Exploit those resources.
With those resources, which I'm assuming is where we'd see the other big revenues. I mean, rental fees and stuff, yeah, it could be a line item. But I don't think it's gonna probably be starting out, an absorbent amount compared to the overall budget, but.
So Dennis, did you envision having a separate cleaning account for the Hancock site?
No.
But you do see separate expenses for fuel, electric,
Yes,
your infrastructure.
yes, all easily identifiable. I could expand, well, for instance, in my current budget, I have a budget figure for the courthouse and jail electric bill and for the annex separately. And so I was figuring that I would add a line for the Hancock site as well. So 0615
Yeah, we would just.
025 or whatever would indicate Hancock site electric bill.
We would just add additional lines to the chart of accounts so that
To the
the
departments.
RCC is using it. If they have stuff going on there, we would charge it under the RCC, but it would still be delineated as
So
a,
you would have that in a separate budget.
it would still be.
Just to be identified in your.
Yes, I could, yeah. I could do it either way, but it seems like the easier way.
I don't think we have a preference, I'm just curious, I'd like to be able to sometime, a couple of years down the road, be able to identify the cost and the.
Sure.
And that's something, as it evolves, I think we could make the moves to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
If
once
it becomes an issue.
if we got to that point, it's just a matter of obviously each department head, which they already know what they're putting in their budget anyway for that, pulling that back out and inserting it into a new line in a separate department, if that's the route that you.
Yeah,
decide to
and we'll
go.
also have a lot more information a year or 2 down, hopefully, so on what the actual expenses are and the way we should go. So if it's easier to make all Hancock site, we could add a new line, but in the same Department 6.
Right.
Right.
That's why I asked you this morning if you were gonna bid Hancock and parking lot separate, so that we could identify the cost
Yeah.
and we don't know for sure what the exact need is gonna be for snow there this winter, if construction is there.
Yes.
They're gonna do their own snow removal if they're in there for construction, so.
But the construction, the project site has been condensed to just a log cabin. So we're gonna have to have somebody who have clear past building C, D, E, and probably a turnaround on the end, very basic for this year, but I don't think that ELSA is gonna do that.
We'll take care of it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you could put obviously into that too, even separating your costs, you could bid your specs so that you can find out what the cost is associated.
Yes, I'll separate it as an addendum. The bid, so we'll get two bids, one for this site, one for Hancock. Could easily do that.
If that helps.
Yeah. And that's just in the gathering of information phase. The way we decide to assign it or apportion it will be up to the commission when the bids are in.
So right now, then, we'll continue with that approach, inserting that into their existing department budgets, but obviously there may be separate line items that are included as a result of that.
Okay.
Okay, so what am I gonna talk about next? All right, well, I do have one last item, and it does go back to that same Hancock site and the ELC. While developing the budgets for 2026, the question becomes, is what is the commissioner's vision for that site in 2026? And I can further clarify that by, is your expectation that whatever the date is, whenever we go live with that site over there, and people move in and it's fully operational, are you going to want us to have everything completed and fully operational and ready to go? Or do you want us to plan on a bare minimum so that at least all the functions that are designated for over there could occur, but understanding we might need to buy more equipment, we might need to add additional things as we go? And why that's important is because obviously as they develop their budget right now, they need to know, do they have to have all the equipment they need to be fully operational? Or do they need enough equipment so it could be used, but maybe not where we'd be at, say, 2027, when all the construction's hopefully completed, people are completely moved in and they've been able to take time to get everything implemented that needs to be done. And it impacts what budget we give you, I guess, is the issue.
But to do that, we have to have a crystal ball.
Exactly.
I think the one thing, Michael, I would say is that sometime before December 15th, we'll make a decision on what the capital account will be for the Hancock site. And I say that because today, we don't have anything on the table that tells us we need to raise $500,000 to renovate building E for office space, for example. But something may happen between now and November that does. At that point, we'll raise that money and whatnot so that we can meet that obligation, whatever that is. So I don't know anyone to say anything more than that.
So using that thought process, then, should any major capital investments over there, the department has been setting aside and not including? I mean, there will be some expenses, we know. I've already got some budgets that department has put together already for some minimum equipment we're gonna need in order to even be able to turn the lights on, set it up and get it going. So there'll be some of that, but if they have additional capital equipment items or other things like that, would you rather see that in a separate list, a collective list that we give to you toward the end? Or
Give me an example.
So
what would somebody?
Probably
I can give you a good example.
RCC, yeah.
Infrastructure wise, to keep your network operational up there, you need to put in the fiber, the internet. You gotta put in switches and get the racks in. That's the bare minimum. But if you want to take it a step further and get Bob operational, I need to buy 4 computers for his dispatch, which is gonna be another $11,000. So do I just put in minimal, get the network established, or do I take it a step further and get him operational? Mine was similar. We purchased 2 radio consoles with ARPA that can be networked into the existing system. Probably gonna need one more that I probably will request out of my capital reserve account. With those computers, that's still tied into this building, that gets us, at least but we also need phones. To be able to, we have to go there because there's no reason we can't be here even for a couple hours. That's the bare bones. And then, the full blown would be a complete, standalone radio system, tied into his network. So it's making it really hard to, because there's licensing, there's another recorder for data recording, all those things that make it kind of, I'll say, difficult to even for next year, because there's like licenses for OpenFox, for example, to run DMV stuff. That's, you know, how many, I mean, I don't necessarily need 4 computers at the get-go per se, but that's licensing that we plan for. There's service contracts, you know, for the radio systems that we have to plan for that are, you know, do I plan for another radio console out there with, you know, 5,000, the first year it would cost anything, but so it's just hard to to figure out, you know, what the bare bones is still going to be fairly pricey, but not as extraordinary as fully outfitted to operate independently.
Right, and if we do the bare bones, we have the bare bones, but it's not operational.
We could function, it just wouldn't be very well. So. Where do we start?
Because one of the problems is that if you budget for the full operational for 12 years and you don't move into it until July or August of next year, you wasted that money. Can we not budget for full operational and wait and budget that 27 when you know exactly what you've got in there?
Sure.
I think
Then I would go with my bare minimum and get the network established.
that's what, my personal opinion, that's what I'd like to see is to be a minimum, because you're not gonna move in there as soon as it opens.
No.
That's not, it's not like you're waiting for that space to move. So there's no reason to get that fully operational the day we unlock the door.
So would bare minimum for both of you though include just the basic infrastructure and it wouldn't be able to be supported, or would you like to have
Well,
actual?
I think there's some things that, from my side, that I would be required to have. You know,
Yeah.
The recording system, which is another, you know, standalone server working here. The 2 radios would get us by for a very brief period of time. You know, a couple of computers for the dispatcher to log into to do basic functionality.
So what we wouldn't want to see though is that we put the money in there. It's not enough to do everything to fully start services, and then something happens here and we say, oh yeah, we got this site over there, but we can't do anything with it because we don't have extra water.
Yeah. To me, it's like there has to be it has to be functional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bare
Well, I mean,
bones is one thing, but it has to be
do it.
bare bones functional.
Yeah. So if we're waiting, you know, I mean, if we're waiting, yeah, I mean, if we need a couple hours to get the generator back online and, you know, we can, get a radio system, but even then, radio, you know, we wouldn't be able to use the radio system, but we'd have a place to go and maybe answer the phone. So it's really, it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't, there's no real great way, so it's a crystal ball thing, and you're rolling the ceremony of chicken bones to try to figure out what do we
I
think
know,
might
I still think we need to, I think we'd be wiser to phase this in as opposed to being fully operational on day one. What we're developing, we've never had before. So it's not like we're replacing something.
Right.
All brand new. And the other thing that always haunts me is that it's gonna take World War III before we need it. You know what I mean? You're not gonna go out there every time the wind blows over 40 knots.
No.
So I mean,
that's
the
correct.
need, the chances for needing that is so remote that we're devoting a lot of money that's going to be needed in other places.
But my bare minimum
Well,
is a step further.
and I think that's what you bring to us, the minimal thing, but it might not make you fully operational on day one. And we'll see what that is. Michael, is that close enough?
I think we can make something work.
I know what I need bare minimum.
And then we'll work through that, obviously, when we present to you. If we get closer to the end of the year, if something has to change, or if you are looking at a capital thing, then they may have to suggest a couple things for you to consider adding into that.
At least to not have it just be a rental for or a you know, a space to have equipment sit there.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that helps us. We'll move forward. That's it for the questions that I have right now. Thank you, I appreciate the help with that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Good, Tim.
When are the caucuses for the Budget Advisory Committee? And do we know who the candidates are?
So you're gonna be basically setting the dates for when you want to have those happen. And that's by the end of this, since today's July 1st, that's by the end of this month, you should have that all together, and we should hopefully have those advertised for what you set up. But a lot of that really falls back on the three of you, or as a commissioner, you finding a location in order to hold your caucus and all that. And making sure that we will send notices out to each clerk in each town in the county, for each district separately, obviously, with the information about when those are held and the positions that will be vacant. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm trying to follow up with any of the individuals that might not be eligible or continue to be eligible. So there may be one or two positions that, and I'm almost thinking it might, well, I know it's your district actually, because you've got to also find a replacement for you now, Commissioner DeBella, because obviously you're on the commission now rather than the Budget Advisory Commission. So, our committee, sorry. So, yeah, so you'll probably have two that you have to fill, but I will be shortly sending you that information so that you can start to reach out and come up with the scheduling of those dates and times. Technically, you have up until, I think, September 23rd to actually have somebody elected to be able to go into that position. But generally speaking, they're usually held towards the end of August, and maybe the 1st of September, and everybody's on board by then. So, but I will be sending you the information, and then you just need to get back to me with the dates, the times, and so forth. So,
And with regards to candidates, Sam, those nominations are taken from the floor the day of the caucus. So you don't announce, you don't have to file ahead of time. In fact, there's no way to do that. You just simply show up and. The other issue is the other issue, I'd let the commissioner pushing when I say this. You have a budget advisory committee in Scott.
We do. We have some elected and some appointed.
We have the same thing. I think it's 2/3 municipal official and 1/3 something public. So,
yeah.
Do you simply allow the public to come and decide who they want to run, or do you actively go out and find people within your district to serve?
Well, there has not been the level of interest that has allowed for the public to self-appoint. So we have 3 district caucuses that we hold during that year, and we select people or elect people at that. But generally, it's a matter of the commissioners reaching out to people to encourage them to come.
Just like it is down here then.
Yeah.
It's almost like the box garden, the hen house, quite honestly. I mean, this is supposed to be the taxpayer's representative and, find somebody that you want to come in and represent the tax. And turns out that we end up selecting, or at least encouraging people that we think are going to support county government to come in and serve on the BAC. So.
I've talked to one of our colleagues in another county where they have a much stronger presence on their budget committee, and that has created some complications. And if you've ever gone to a local town meeting and watched 1 or 2 people shred up the budget committee's decision, that's happening in a couple of counties around the state. So I've just made a mental note to put this on my list of educational topics that we'll take up in a future session, because I think with the number of new people and the number of old dogs like us who've been around for a while, it would be helpful to kind of find out what might be a model that would work better, because the budgets are getting more challenging as the state steps back from what I perceive as their responsibility to help county government, particularly in the jails. We're putting it on the property taxpayer. We don't know how that's going.
Our BAC is very active once they get appointed and get here. But the problem is that in years gone by, if the commissioner did not find somebody to come in and run, that went vacant.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I've talked to a couple of counties where that is, Cumberland is one of those that struggles at times to fill some of their
And
positions.
if the commissioners took the opinion that if you're not interested, I'm not. I mean, a 10-member BAC could be down to 5.
Yeah, and that's if all 5 show up.
Well, that's the other problem. Okay, Sam, so anyways, you you'll get a drop dead date from Michael as to when you're going to select a date for your caucus and a place for it. And then it's up to you to look at your list, and if you think that you know, that you need to go out and solicit and enlist people to serve on it, that's up to you. How you wanna do that, if you just wanna let them decide themselves.
I got it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gonna go into an executive session.
Suggestions from the commissioners for future meetings? Mike, you all set? Sam, you all set?
Yes.
Okay, we have an executive session set up for an evaluation of Michael's performance, which ends our meeting today. And Commissioner, thanks again for coming down. It's been nice.
I enjoyed it, so thank you for giving me the time, and look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Just the documents. Oh, sorry. Do you have?
The copy.
The financial contract and
That one.
good, thank you. Have a good day, gentlemen.
What is the technical difficulty? You're all set. Technical difficulty of having to stay on for the executive session.
Well, so what I was gonna do is I was gonna stop the recording and then remove all the other participants.
So he can stay.
Yes, or remove the other participants first and then stop recording.
I think once you stop the recording altogether, then Sam will have to join again. You'll have to-
Well, I can actually,
Right.
I can remove everyone who's currently
Oh,
here.
Yeah, but you don't want, you don't want stuff, we don't want the executive session recorded.
Yeah, I can stop the recording though. If you're okay with the Zoom on, I can keep the meeting and stop the recording and then restart it.
Looking for is an opportunity for Sam to join us without anybody else.
Right.
So however you make that work.
Put a lot of people in waiting rooms real quick.
Stop the meeting and have Sam join again.
I think that's gonna have to happen.
I think
Remember to,
because currently it's just us and Sam